Afternoon. I'm just going to allow 30 seconds for any participants to join us, and then we'll get started. Okay, hello. I am Mikala from Business South. And if you're here for my Getting Started in Business webinar, I'm pleased to say you are in the right place. Now, if you would like to communicate with me at any time throughout the webinar, you can pop a message in the chat box or use the Q&A box. If there's any issues, like you can't hear me properly, anything like that, also just let me know. I'm doing a little bit of multitasking, which I don't generally believe in, but just keeping my eye across everything to make sure it all runs smoothly. So let's get started. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we work, live and meet today. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we celebrate the stories, culture and traditions of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities who also work and live on this land. So as I said, I'm Mikala and I am a small business facilitator with Business South. And basically what that means is I provide assistance with business ideas. So if you're thinking of starting a business and you kind of want to discuss the ins and outs with someone, I'm your person. I also run networking events, workshops and community events to help link startups and the small business community. I provide startup advice, so practical advice, such as what you'll find in this webinar, but also some other bits and pieces on, box ticking sort of things that you need to do. I provide referrals to other support providers because we're very fortunate in Tasmania. There's actually a lot of excellent services available, free, a lot of them, to small businesses. And most of our services are provided free of charge, again, such as this webinar. So what we're here to talk about today is you've got a great idea, you're ready to take the plunge and launch it to the market, but there's some things that you really, really need to think about in order to make it a success. And I'm just going to pop a little caveat out there. They might not be the things that you're thinking of. So I'm hoping to sort of stretch your imagination or challenge your thinking a little bit here. So today we're going to be going through my business idea builder matrix that I developed, which is just this simple document. Now you should have received a link to it in the email. If you haven't, I've just popped the link in the chat box. And also I will be sending out a follow-up email at the end of this webinar. And I'll include the link in that, as well as some other links and things that I talk about throughout the webinar. Okay, so if we start working through this idea builder matrix, the first thing that you really need to consider is your why. So what are some of the key reasons that you've decided to start your own business? And the most important part about this is you need to make sure they're compelling enough to keep you going. The reason being, running a business is hard work. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It's not simple and easy. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it. So it does take a particular type of person to be able to run a business. But with the right support and guidance, you can do it successfully. So in our brains, we have this thing called the motivational triad. So this is what governs the most primal way of how we do things. So what the motivational triad consists of is seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, and conserving energy. And this comes from the primitive part of our brain. So this is basically what kept us alive as cavemen and women. So seeking pleasure meant we ate food when it was available. Avoiding pain meant we didn't do stupid and risky things that could then result in injury and death, like, breaking a leg and then becoming dinner for a saber-toothed tiger. It was our brain's way of keeping us safe and keeping us alive. And conserving energy, well, again, that's kind of about, making sure when we need to run from the tiger, we can do that. We've got the energy we need to be able to do that. But the thing about the motivational triad is it's actually completely the opposite to what you need to do when you start a business. So, obviously we're not in caveman days anymore. So seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, and conserving energy can mean different things. A lot of what our brain tends to do now is steer us towards maybe sitting and watching Netflix instead of doing something that feels uncomfortable. Like the pain can become an uncomfortable pain, like an emotional pain. It's like, I need to go to this networking event and meet new people. That doesn't feel very good. It feels a bit ugh. So our brain will kind of throw up excuses to help us avoid doing these things. So it's important that you realize that this is what your brain is actually going to try and do to you. And as a small business owner, because you don't have a boss telling you what to do, you need to watch out for these things so you can motivate yourself to get done what needs to get done to start and run your business. So another reason why we need our compelling why is because a day in the life of an entrepreneur is a very interesting experience. There are so many ups and downs. Like one moment, everything's going really well and you're having positive feedback and people are buying your product or service. The next minute you're having a lull and no one's shown interest in a couple of weeks and you're starting to panic and you're going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I must be doing something wrong. So know that that is the case, that this is a totally normal thing. It's a normal experience to have these ups and downs and even have a bit of a joke about it. So once you've worked out your why you're doing this, why you're compelled to run your own business, the next thing that you need to think about is your customer. So this is the person that you serve. And the reason that this is really important, this is, funnily enough, something that a lot of people don't think about. And the reason that your customer is so important is that you need to choose a target customer that is both willing and able to pay you. So let me explain that a little bit more. So someone that's willing to pay you. When I first started my most recent business, I started out as a virtual assistant. And I wanted to set up tech and automation for mums who were starting businesses. So these mostly were women who had just had a baby or had a young toddler and were on maternity leave, and they didn't want to return to the workforce. They wanted to work for themselves and run their own business instead. So these women were sleep deprived, they were struggling with technology, they had baby brain, all of the things. So they were really, really willing to employ me to help them in their businesses, to help them set up whatever was the tech, email marketing funnels, all that sort of stuff to get their business up and happening. They could not have found a more willing audience. But the problem that I discovered was they weren't necessarily able to pay me what I needed to earn to make a decent living from my business. Because, we don't go into business for ourselves to earn nothing. We go into business for ourselves because we want to earn a good wage to support us and our families. So the problem I had was a lot of them were coming from one income families because, they'd either had their paid maternity leave and run out of it, or, they were single parents relying on Centrelink benefits, or they had a partner who was the sole income earner. So that was one place that I had a bit of a problem, because in order for me to work with these women, I had to decrease my prices or not price the way that I needed to in order to make a decent living. And it took me a while to learn this lesson. So when you are thinking about who your ideal customer is, the most important thing for you to consider is that they're willing to pay you. So they want what you've got really badly, and that they're able to pay you. They've got the money to be able to pay you what you need to earn. So when it comes to working out who your ideal client is, you need to do some research. So customer profiling and market research involves delving into who your potential customers might be. And what you need to think about is, what are their wants and needs? What are the problems that they have? And I'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. Where do they live? So what's their location? You know, are they in Huonville? Are they in West Hobart? Just to give some examples, Tassie-based examples. What are their buying habits? Are they the kind of person that will, you know, throw money at something immediately? Or are they kind of more of a slow, considered consumer, and they need a few touch points? They need a bit more reassurance before they put their hand in the pocket. So when you're thinking about who your ideal client is or your target market, I encourage you to answer or do a little exercise that I call going 5 levels deep. So the things I want you to consider are, what is their age? What is their gender? Are they married or not married? Do they have kids? And generally, where do they live? Now, you can actually choose any 5 demographics to do this exercise. They're just examples I've come up with. But it's really important that you do this. And it's also really important that you get specific with who it is that you're targeting. And the reason I say that is because, like, the problems and challenges that a 20-year-old woman experience are very different from the problems and challenges that a 50-year-old woman experiences, for a whole host of different reasons. You know, one might have young children, one might have grandchildren, one might be just starting out in the property market, one might own their own house. So it's really important to get very specific in who it is that you're targeting, because that way you can identify things such as their wants and needs, their problems, and you can speak their language, and speaking in a way that will attract their attention. So the next thing, once you've worked out who your customer is, the next thing you need to identify is the problem. So what problem does your customer have that your product or service solves? And most importantly, how would they describe it? Now, just a little thing that I want to bring to your attention here is it's rather important that your product or service provides a solution to an identified problem. So a problem the consumer or your ideal client already knows they have. Or, like, the other option is you're creating a solution to a problem that people didn't know they had. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story here. I used to work for a productivity consultancy, and we developed this great product which helped people get their inbox to zero. So it was a training course, and we created an e-learning version of this. And the problem that we had was we were selling it as get your inbox to zero. Like, the problem was that people had an overflowing inbox. However, the issue that we had there was people didn't actually think, and this is what we discovered after we tried marketing it for a while, people didn't think that an overflowing inbox was a problem. It wasn't an issue for them. You know, it's a lot of us have overflowing inboxes. Like, I've worked with clients who have got 50,000 emails in their inbox. So having that as the main marketing message being the problem that we were trying to solve, it really didn't resonate with many people at all. So what we then had to do was educate people as to why an overflowing inbox was a problem before we could sell them the product. So what you're kind of doing is creating this mountain that you've got to climb in educating them about the problem before you provide the solution to the problem. So I counsel you to avoid doing that. Try and work out a way of identifying a problem in terms of something that people will relate to straight away. And the fact of the matter is, every single product or service solves someone's problem. Every business is there to solve a problem. You just need to work out what it is. If you sell candles, it could be that the problem people have is they need help unwinding at the end of the day, and the candle is a way of doing that. Or it could be a meditation candle, or, you know, there's a reason for everything. Even if it's ornaments or whatever, it doesn't matter what you make. Everything that you sell solves someone's problem. So you need to work out who your target audience is, or your ideal customer, what problem it solves, and the language that they use around that. So once you've identified the problem that you solve for your ideal client, the next thing you need to do is look into the options. So what I mean by options are the ways in which your customer is currently solving the problem. So the alternative solutions that are already out there. And another way of saying that is your competitors. So it is very important when you're starting out that you know your competitors, because if you know your competition, then you can look at the things that are working for them, the things that have worked for them in the past, and where your own business strengths lie. So you're not doing a comparison as such, you're wanting to learn from those that have already gone before you and done it. So you can learn from their triumphs, you can learn from their mistakes, and you can also identify what makes you different. So that's what I mean by where your own business strengths lie. What makes your product or your brand different from your competitors? And I'm going to get more into that in a moment. So you've identified your customer, the problem that you solve for them, the other options out there. The next thing you need to get really clear on is the solution. So this is the thing that you offer your customer. And I've used the word tangible there. It's kind of the best way I can think of describing it. So it's the thing that your customer actually gets from you. So some examples, if you're a lawn maintenance person, it might be that they get neat, tidy lawns. Or if you make soap, it might be that they get organic, hypoallergenic soap. It might be books or magazines, an online course, or if you're a bookkeeper, it could be financial records maintained. So what is the actual thing that they get from you? And describe it in a way that would be compelling to them. So again, knowing what it is they really want. Using the example of a candle again, if it's a candle, what purpose are you creating this candle for? Is it a meditation candle? Is it a nice, relaxing in the bath, releasing beautiful scents into the room kind of candle? Is it a birthday candle, like, you know, one that you can have not necessarily on a cake, but next to a cake that you can light again and again and again to celebrate birthdays? I don't know. But try and think of exactly what it is, what your solution is. Now, once you've figured out your solution, the next thing to identify is the benefit. So what does why does your customer want your product or service? And how do you solve their problem? So this, again, I've used here the word intangible. So what intangible benefit does your client receive? And by that, I mean, is it more time? So, you know, if you're a bookkeeper or a lawnmower, I use a lawnmower myself, a lawn mowing service. I do not like gardening, not my thing. Do not want to spend my weekends pushing a lawnmower. I'd rather go without other things so I can pay a lawnmower. So for me, having someone else take care of my lawn and around the outside of my house, that gives me more time to do what I want to do on my weekends. It gives me less stress. Like I'm not constantly thinking, oh, I've got to find time to do that. It gives me peace of mind knowing that the guy that I've got doing it does an amazing job and he comes regularly. I don't need to think about it. Is it that you provide people with better health if you're kind of in that sort of environment? Is it entertainment? Is it education and self-improvement? Or if you're in marketing or something like that, it could be more sales. So what is the benefit? Is it a peaceful environment? These are the more, if it was a candle, like a meditation candle, the thing that they get is a meditation candle. So that's the solution. The benefit is it creates a space of peace and calm. For example, off the top of my head, the next thing you need to consider is the edge or your edge. So what gives you the edge over the other options, so over your competitors, the other options that are out there? And why are you or your business the best person to provide this solution? So this is also referred to as your point of difference or your unique selling proposition. So that's what POD or USP stands for. So when you're thinking about your USP or your point of difference, the things you need to consider are, is it better? Is it different? And how? And what makes your solution unique? Now, I'm going to give you a big hint there. Often it's you and your life experiences and your life challenges. I mentioned before that every business solves a problem. Often, funnily enough, the problem that we solve is a problem that we have had as a consumer and we want to solve it for ourselves. We do a great job of that and then we offer the solution as a business. So you need to think about why you developed your product or service. What makes you different? Is it the way that your brain thinks? That's what makes me different from other business coaches. It's my experience. It's the things I've done before. It's that I've got a background in productivity and in strengths coaching and all these different things. So really think about that, because that's what you need to communicate in order to stand out from the crowd. It's got to be the thing that makes you different. And try not to be generic, like really try and dig down into who you are as a person or the situation that your product or service grew from. Once you've covered those things and you've gotten clear on those things, particularly, the benefit and the edge, then you need to start thinking about your message. So what is your story or your brand's story, and how does your customer hear it? So this is kind of talking, actually I'll slip to the next slide. So the first thing you need to consider here is, where will people hear about you? So how are you going to connect with your customer? Where do they hang out? And by hang out, I mean, is it in real life or is it in the digital world, online? Now, an example is if you were, let's use my lawnmower. I use this guy a lot. If you wanted to mow the lawns of retired people, like say retired couples with empty nests, that's your target market, then you need to think about the kind of lifestyle that they lead. Like, you're probably not going to reach those people on TikTok. You might reach them on using a notice board at your local banjos or something, if they get together for coffee regularly with their friends. You need to think about, where are they going to be? How can you get in front of their eyes? I worked with a client a few years ago who made these beautiful water spirals. So they were features in gardens, like really fancy sprinklers. I won't ever tell her I said that, but they'd make these gorgeous shapes and patterns when the water ran through them and they span around in the garden. And she did lots of advertising on Facebook and Instagram and, all these different places. But it wasn't until she actually started advertising in magazines like Town and Country, where she really hit her target market. They were the people that were willing and able to pay her the price that she needed to charge for these beautiful products. And they were the people that cared about their gardens, that really cared about their homes and spent a lot of money on them. Hence, they also bought the magazines. So it's really important to think about how you're going to get in front of their eyes, how they're going to see you. So whether it's a flyer at your local library on the notice board, or a Facebook ad, or an ad in a magazine, really think about that. How are you going to get in front of their eyes? Where do they hang out? So I spoke briefly about the platforms that they're on. You know, if they're Gen X, it's probably, excuse me, it's probably Facebook. Younger people, I don't know, Snapchat. I have to confer with my kids. But if it's older professional people, it might be LinkedIn. You really need to think about where your people are going to be. And the other thing I really want you to consider is, how can you build a subscriber list? Now, social media marketing is great. It's a fabulous thing to use. You can do a lot of free, marketing on social media by putting up posts and things. But as we discovered during COVID, it can get really, really busy. Like, what happened during COVID was suddenly all these businesses were closing down and they were having to pivot and do things differently. And people didn't have any way of communicating with their clients other than posting on social media. And so suddenly our social media feeds were full of not just, posts from businesses saying, oh my gosh, like a cafe, for example, now we're doing takeaways or home deliveries or whatever, but also from people. We were all going through this pandemic, which was totally new to us. So there were just posts flying left, right, and center. So it was a very, very busy environment, and a lot of stuff got missed. Now, if you build a subscriber list, and by that I mean an email subscriber list, not only are you landing directly in front of your customer, every time an email, lands in our inbox, we can see who it's from. Whether we do something with that email is another story. But every single time your email lands in their inbox, they see your name and they think of you. And the other thing is, when an email lands in our inbox, we have to make a decision. We have to make a decision whether we're going to open it, whether we're going to delete it, or whether we're going to ignore it. And that is a decision as well. And so, by landing in someone's inbox, we're forcing them to make a decision, which is essentially forcing them to think about us and our product or service. Whereas on social media, I think the latest stats are that only 4% of your followers actually see any of your posts at any one time. Whereas, email marketing, like I said, you land in someone's inbox and you're right there. You enter their consciousness. So have a think about how you can build a subscriber list. Now, there's lots of great free platforms that you can use to build out an email marketing list. MailerLite is one that I recommend. And we've got other resources and things around that. So if you want more information, please feel free to reach out, and I can send you some links to recordings that we've done in the past on email marketing. But do think about ways that you can capture your client or your customer's information, or even people before they've become a client or customer, just people that are interested, how you can capture their information and use that to essentially market yourself for free, or to keep coming back into their consciousness. So the next thing you need to consider are your channels. So how does your product or service get to your customer? So this is thinking about the steps that are involved. And I also want you to consider who or what else you might need to engage. So what I mean by that is, are you going to require manufacturers to create your product? Do you need stockists? We've got some clients who don't actually have their own store. They only sell their product through stockists. They don't have an online store. They don't have a physical store. They just use stockists. It's a great way of doing things. Do you need an e-commerce website? You've got to consider packaging as well. If you're selling a product that's going to go through the mail, you want to package it in a way that when it arrives on the other end, it looks just as beautiful as when you put it in the box to send it. So that's a really important consideration. Freight and delivery is also another really important consideration. In our last Coffee and Connections in Glenorchy, I had Michelle from the Lenna Valley Post Office come, and she talked to us about all the different options for postage, and she blew our minds a little bit. It was, there's so many different options that you can send something for $60 by doing it one way, or you can send exactly the same thing for $7 doing it a different way. So you need to do your research on that, because that can greatly blow out the cost of your product. Or if postage is too high, it's also a really good way of losing customers. Often people will get to the postage part and abandon cart. That's, the term for it. When you get to that point and you're like, oh, that's too much, I'm not paying that in postage. So do your research, look into your freight and delivery, go into an Australia Post outlet, or, the privately owned ones even, and find out the best way to freight or deliver your product. Booking software. If you're a coach or consultant, you might want to allow people to be able to book with you online. Payment processing platform, very important. Just about everyone needs one. There's so many different solutions that you can use, and they all have different fees and costs and options. So you need to consider that. And also, again, webinar or video conferencing software, if you're a coach or consultant and you need something like Zoom or webinars, something like that. These are all costs. These are all things that need to be factored in. So make sure that you do really think it through, identify all these things, and do your research as to the costs. Which leads us nicely to revenue. So how do you make money from your customers, and what different opportunities might be available? So when you're thinking about this, I challenge you to think outside the square. So if we had another pandemic, could you still earn money? What different income streams could you add to your business in 2, 5, or 10 years' time? And how could you potentially expand your offering in the future? So in saying this, I'm not suggesting if you were just selling candles, I'm not suggesting that suddenly you develop an entire range of 10 different products and start selling them off the bat. What I'm encouraging you to do is to do some future planning and future thinking. You don't need to act on it, but it's a really, really smart way of doing it. So you've kind of got some ideas. So, should another pandemic hit, you're able to really quickly or easily pivot and do something else, have another way of generating income. It's not, however, just pandemic sort of based, for want of a better term, disasters, but also health problems. Like I myself was running a successful tech and automation business until about 2.5 years ago, when I developed a chronic nerve pain condition. And the medication I take from that can slow my brain down a bit. Sometimes I can struggle with work, trying to find the words that I want. It also just makes keeping up with the changes to technology really challenging, trying to keep all the information in my head. But the way I dealt with that was I kind of already had a plan, because I knew what I was doing used a lot of brain power and brain energy. And, as I was getting older, I knew that I would come to a point where I would find my memory really challenging. So I had a plan that I would transition to business coaching at some point in the future, when that started to become an issue for me. So having that plan in place, when all this happened, and I suddenly realized very quickly that I wouldn't be able to continue my business in its current form, I was able to really quickly pivot into my new offering. And I hadn't put anything in place, but I had had the thought, and I did have kind of a rough plan of what I wanted to do. So, you know, it wasn't a catastrophic, oh my goodness, now what am I going to do situation. I had an idea. I had future thoughts. It really wasn't that hard. So I do challenge you to think of that. You know, things like having a baby can really throw a spanner in the works. How would you manage that? Just have contingency plans in mind for what you might do. And heaven forbid you might not need them, but you might. You never know. All right, so moving from revenue into your startup needs. So these are the one-off things that you need to get started. So right here, we're separating the needs from the wants. So the things that you actually physically need, not the nice to haves. So I want you to think in terms of money. You know, what do you have to pay out? People. Do you need a bookkeeper to help you get accounting software set up? Do you need accounting software to start with, or can you use a spreadsheet? If you need accounting software, do you need a bookkeeper to help set it up for you and teach you how to use it? Things, if you're printing pencils, I had a client who did this, printed sayings on pencils for teachers. You know, do you need a machine to be able to allow you to do that? The technology, so you might be thinking of a website or e-commerce site, or, you know, your webinar software. And activities, so if you're creating hand-sewn products, are you going to need to develop a team of people who can help you assemble the products? So have a think and really identify everything that you need. So it's also known as assessing your capital needs. So you want to work through your capital needs. And it really is a critical element of your startup plan. You need to know what you're going to be up for before you launch yourself into it. So again, this is thinking about things like, just from a conversation I had this morning, do you need insurance? Yes, you do need insurance. What insurance do you need? Do you need some intellectual property protection? Do you need to speak to a trademarks lawyer? All of that sort of stuff. You need to think about that now, because you might find that for the business you had in mind, your startup needs are too high and you either can't afford it at the moment, or you need to revisit your idea, pull it back to a minimum viable product, so something simpler, and start with launching that. So it is a really, really important step to take. And just a caveat, I'm a facilitator, not a financial advisor. And as such, it is your responsibility to seek out the specialist service providers that you require throughout your small business journey. However, that said, I'm very well connected in the small business environment in Tasmania, and I can help you with referrals. Okay, so once you've identified your startup costs, so the things that you need to launch and get going, then you need to look at your ongoing costs. So what ongoing needs are essential to keep you going? And again, think in terms of money, people, things, technology, and activities. And I'm going to just come back to the word essential. So when you kind of get started in business and when you're going in the first couple of years, you often find, or if you're engaged in small business communities, you'll often find all these little, supportive hacks or tips, or, little pieces of software that you can add in to make life easier. So one example that I'm going to use is I use Xero in my business. We also use it in Business South. And there's a integrative software called Dext. So Dext is actually really cool. What it allows you to do is when you buy something, you can then, if you receive the receipt or the invoice via email, you can forward it to Dext and it will create it in your Xero account. So when it comes time to, I can't think of the word, to identify what the cost was for, that invoice or receipt is already sitting in your Xero account. So it actually makes the process of balancing your books really quick and easy. Now, there are other ways you can do it. You can do it manually. Dex just makes it simpler. So if your business is going really well and you can afford things like Dex and you want to use them, that's fantastic. But what I always recommend doing is having a list of essential needs and costs and nice to haves as well. So if you find that something happens like, illness, divorce, pandemic, whatever, and suddenly you need to quickly cut costs, you know what your essentials are, and you also know what your nice to haves are. So you can quickly eliminate your nice to haves if you need to fix your cash flow in the short term or even in the longer term. So have those two lists for your ongoing costs. I highly recommend doing it, because otherwise, when you're in the middle of a crisis in your business, whether it's a cash flow crisis or something else, finding the time to be able to do these things can be really challenging. Whereas if you do them right from the start, it makes it a no-brainer. It makes it super, super simple to be able to work these things out and to take action really quickly. Okay, so what's next? So you've got your idea, you've got a really good idea of who your customer is, who you serve, the problem you solve, what else is out there, how they're currently solving the problems, who your competitors are, the solution you provide, the benefits of your solution, your edge, the message, so what it is that you're communicating to the people and how you're finding them, your channels, how you're getting your product or service to your customers and the different bits and pieces you need to make that happen, your revenue, the different options for you to earn an income or to make money, your startup needs, and your ongoing costs. You've got all that sorted, or all that at least thought through. The next step you need is to assess the market. So you can do this through focus groups. You can ask questions on social media. You can do small market tests or create a trial version of your product or service. And the idea is you want to seek feedback and test sales. So this is also known as creating a minimum viable product. Now, there's one thing I want to bring to your attention here, because this is a mistake that I see lots of new businesses making. They'll create a product or service, and people do this with logos too, funnily enough. You'll create something and then you'll put it out there for feedback. But the people that you ask might be family and friends, which is fantastic. However, the people that you want to get feedback from and test your sales with need to be your ideal client, so the customer that you want to serve. Because if you're not getting feedback from the right people, then any tweaks or changes that you make won't be in line with what they need. So just do bear that in mind. And same with your, logos and business names, all that sort of thing. It doesn't matter if it appeals to grandma. Your grandma might think it's a beautiful logo, but if your target market are tween girls, they're probably not going to have the same tastes. So again, just be careful who you ask for feedback. But there's lots of different ways that you can do it. You can jump into Facebook groups. If you're often we're our own target market. Ask friends who would be likely to engage your product or buy your product or service. But make sure you do the testing and ask questions. Like, building a business is all about learning, and the way that we learn the best is by seeking feedback and testing things out, trying and testing. That's marketing. Like, that really is the whole underpinning thing about marketing. You try something, you test it, you see if it works, you get feedback from either people or your analytics, you tweak something, and then you try it and test it again. That's how it works. That's business. So next step, I've given you an awful lot of information, is to summarize your thoughts. So have a bit of a think about looking at all of these things on your matrix. Do you have the basic skills and attributes that you need to make your business idea a success? What gaps do you have that you might need to fill? And what assistance might you need to move forward? Now, assistance could be formal assistance, like coming to me for help, or getting a referral to one of the other business support services. Or it might just be that you need to join a networking group so you can be around other people who are in the same stage of business. Because it can be tricky when you're first starting out in business if you don't have a small business community around you to help, just really with emotional support, if nothing else. Because as I said before, running a business is tricky. And unless you're in it, you don't really fully appreciate what's involved. This to a business plan. Now, a business plan is a formal written document containing the goals of a business, the methods for attaining those goals, and the time frame for the achievement of the goals. Now, it is a good thing because it allows you to put pen to paper and get all your thoughts and ambitions for your business and desired and measurable outcomes out and on paper. And it also might be required for funding, like if you're going for a grant or a loan or even lease agreements. Now, before your eyes glaze over or you start to panic, the good news I have is that if you have completed your business idea builder matrix, that can actually, all the information from that can be copy and pasted into a lean business plan. And I'm going to provide you with a link to a lean business plan from, I think it's from the Business Tasmania website, that you can download and just copy and paste it all in. So you've actually done the hard work already, provided you've completed this. And if you haven't completed this, it's okay, because you'll get a link to the recording from today's webinar, so you can go back and check out any bits that you've missed or anything that you're struggling with. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do take all the information from your matrix and pop it into a business plan. And the other thing about a business plan is it's not a one and done. It should actually be a living and breathing document. I review mine every year. I do I call it a strategic plan for my business, which is kind of really just a fancy name for a business plan. So you want to work out what it is you want to achieve for the year. Make that your goal. Then work out the things that you're going to try and do to get you to the goal, how you're going to do them, and when you're going to have them done by. Now, to support you through this, as I said before, we have lots of fantastic free services available here in Tasmania. We are very, very fortunate. So the first one I'm going to mention is called Self-Employment Assistance Program. So this is available to people. Now, I do have their speak to your job provider if you qualify. So this is available for people who are on Job Seeker and similar payments, but it's also available to people that aren't. So what it is an 8-week course, and I always forget to look this up so I can tell you exactly. I think it's in microbusiness. So it's a certificate course in microbusiness. And you go through 8 weeks of training and you actually learn how to put together a business plan. So all this sort of stuff that we've discussed, they talk about a lot of that. And the idea is at the end of the 8 weeks, you're ready to launch your business. So if you'd like some more information about that, please feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to give you some more information. There's a no interest loan scheme which provides micro-business loans to start or boost an existing business. Now, there are some criteria for that, and I think you need to be on a healthcare card or something similar. And there's also the Digital Ready program. Now, this is a fantastic program provided by State Growth, and you get 4 hours of free digital coaching every year for Tasmanian businesses. So as long as you've got an ABN and it has a Tasmanian address, so if you've moved here from interstate, get onto the business registry and update your address, and you get access to a digital coach through this program. Now, I've used it personally in my own business. I have never had loving relationship with social media, and I got help on strategy and how to build content pillars and all that sort of stuff. And I also, when I was launching a digital program, I went and saw another digital coach, and they helped me put together a marketing plan. So it's a fabulous, fabulous resource that we have. But basically, they can help you with anything digital to do with business. So if you wanted to talk about scheduling software or all that sort of stuff, they can provide you with advice on that. But it's really, really valuable for digital marketing and social media, all that sort of stuff. And there's lots of different digital coaches who have strengths in different things. Again, if you'd like a referral, please don't hesitate to reach out. And Business Tasmania is a great resource. They've got a wide range of business toolkits and downloadable resources, checklists, all that sort of thing. They also have a Getting Started in Business workbook, and in the follow-up email, I'll send you a link to the digital version of that. And that talks about things like business structure, considering insurance, all that sort of thing. And the Tasmanian Business Advice Service. Now, this is a new program that's started up in October, I think, of this year. Again, it's provided by the Tasmanian State Government, and it gives you free access to a business advisor. So this is what their website looks like. And you can see down the bottom, you've got two buttons. So the first one is for businesses that have had an ABN for 12 months or more. So if you fall into that category, you actually qualify for 5 hours of free business advice with an advisor. And there's lots of different advisors available. You can, if you click that button, it'll take you, actually, I'll show you what it'll take you through to. It'll take you through to this page. And as you can see here, you can view the advisor profiles. And you can talk to them about many different things like managing your cash flow, marketing, risk management, small business planning and strategy, all that sort of stuff. So that's for existing businesses that have had an ABN for 12 months or longer. If you're a new business and you either don't yet have an ABN or you've had an ABN for less than 12 months, you can access the New Business Support Pilot Program. So this program is so far only going through until the 30th of June next year. And you get 2 hours of free support and guidance. So what I generally do is recommend that clients coming to Business South, you'll be able to, I'm not up there yet, but I'm about to become an available advisor through this program. So what you can do is you can book a 2-hour session with me or with someone else, and we can help you, we can discuss your situation better. We can give you a bit more advice and guidance on things like business structure. We can help you with things looking at licenses. There's a government website called ABLIS where you can look at licenses and all those sorts of things that you might need in order to run your business. For example, if you were making cakes from home, there's all these different permits and licenses that you need to consider, and also council rules and regulations. So that website's a great help there. But you can actually get assistance from an advisor to help step you through the process and all the things that you need to look at there. So absolutely access either of these programs depending on where you're at. And the fabulous thing is, if you currently have had your ABN for, say, 9 months, in 3 months' time, you then become eligible for the other one as well. So you could use your 2 hours under the New Business Support Program now, and in 3 months' time, use your 5 hours under the existing business program. So absolutely jump in and use these free resources. I highly recommend them. And if you need help, if you're an existing business and you need help, but you're not quite sure which advisor you need, I have actually met all of them, and I am quite versed in people's different strengths. So please feel free to reach out to me and just say, hey, can you recommend someone? I'm very happy to do that. I do that with a lot of my clients that I refer on. I actually tell them or suggest to them who I think would be able to help them best with whatever it is that they need. And as I said, I should be available under the new business support program, hopefully in the next few weeks. So you can access me there if you would like to. So that's pretty much the end of it. So as I said, these are a starting point to help further develop your business idea. Please feel free to contact me if you need some more business assistance, more information or referrals. I will send out that follow-up email within the next few hours, so you have the links to these different things that I've mentioned. And follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. If you're not already on our email list, please jump on it because I share with you all the upcoming events and things. I also like to share little tidbits that I come across. The most recent newsletter that I think I sent out yesterday, I was talking about some different things to help get you prepared for Christmas, both as a business owner in the sense of looking at your stock levels and all that sort of thing, but also as a person, because it can be a very stressful time of year, especially if you've got children and that sort of thing. Your time's kind of torn between having to go to school events and run your business and get everything ready for Christmas. So I like to share different things that I come across, and I listen to lots of podcasts and all that sort of thing. So I've got lots of information to share. So please jump on the newsletter list so I can share it with you. And as you probably found when you discovered this webinar, we've got our upcoming events listed on our website. Now, I don't have a lot listed for the moment. I'm just getting organised for January 2024. So I will probably be sending out another email newsletter end of next week. It'll be just before Christmas anyway, which will let you know sort of what's coming up next. So thank you all very much. Now, again, once you receive that follow-up email, if you have any questions from today or if you're watching the replay, please feel free to hit reply to that email. It just comes straight to me and ask your question, and we can start a conversation, or I can send you a link if you want to book in some time to talk to me about anything that we've covered or anything else to do with getting your business up and running. So thank you again for your time. I hope you have a fabulous afternoon. And if I don't see or hear from you before then, also have a wonderful Christmas and New Year.